The good news is tens of thousands of property owners in our parish will see significant reductions in the cost of their flood insurance. 6 months ago, I went down to the Montleon Hotel to speak to a group that was coming to Louisiana, and the guy that parked my car in the garage said, "Mr. Donelon, I know you don't have anything to do with it, but I really appreciate the reduction in my flood insurance costs out in the east that I just got notice of. And my sister lives next door to me, and she got a reduction as well." So indeed, that is good news. But every year, at the beginning of the hurricane season, I make a tour of all the metropolitan area media outlets, and they are very accommodating. It's kind of, as you all know, the news of the day as we approach June 1st each year. So all the media gives me access to their viewers, their listeners, the print media, to get the message out. And my message for those property owners anywhere in our state, from Shreveport to Grand Isle, is the same. First and foremost, access the significantly subsidized National Flood Insurance Program, benefiting property owners in our state more than any other state in America, because we have collected since 1978 in our state $19 billion plus, $19.4 billion. The next three most benefited states, New York and New Jersey, Superstorm Sandy, and Texas. Now this predates Harvey and Irma last year. That will change those numbers significantly. But those next three states had each collected just over $6 billion since 1978. We were as bigger than the next three states put together. Over the past 2 years, 58 of our 64 parishes have been declared disaster areas because of flooding events. 25 of those twice in the past 2 years. 20+% of the flood claims that are paid nationwide by the NFIP are for properties flooded out in low-risk areas. And the one that I point to in all those media events is the Grand Ole Opry. And everybody in the audience says, yeah, I remember that in downtown Nashville when it flooded out. So it can happen regardless of whether you're in an X zone, and thankfully, twice as many properties, I was told as we gathered this morning, will now be not required to keep flood insurance in place. But my message is it's the best insurance buy anybody can make anywhere, in the property owner can make anywhere in the state of Louisiana, no question about it. It's the one piece of insurance, because it really is not insurance, it's a FEMA program, that I advocate, promote for folks to access, because it is so necessary anywhere in the state of Louisiana. So having said that, I would make myself available for any questions any of you might have, or any of my colleagues. Mr. Henderson is my deputy. He started at the department about the time I started on the council, when he was a student at Southern University in Baton Rouge back in the 90s, actually. And has been there since. He is the Deputy Commissioner for Consumer Advocacy at the department, and you are with the...
I'm here with Jeferson Parish.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to take a moment to let you guys know kind of what we're seeing here at the parish and what we're hearing from residents. Again, it's been 20+ years since we've gone through a map change, and that's one reason that we asked the Commissioner's Office to come and kind of give us that statewide perspective. At this point in time, we've received just over 1,500 online requests from citizens to get letters to give to their insurance companies. Most of those are going to insurance companies that require a letter. I know a lot of you may have, I personally, my insurance was done automatically by my insurance company. I got a letter in the mail and a refund check. So if that's the case for some of our citizens, that's excellent. But also a follow-up letter that I got was from my mortgage company telling me that they wouldn't escrow the flood insurance anymore. And so I made a phone call to them just to make sure that they were aware that I did want them to continue to escrow. I do want to carry flood insurance, even though my flood risk has been reduced to a zone X. So kind of those things that we're seeing through the office, and certainly any residents that have questions or can't get a solid answer from their insurance agent, we're here to help and even refer them up to FEMA if necessary.
So Michelle, just so I know, you think it's for instance, my policy popped me to a lower policy and just automatically kept me on with a lower but some people may have to opt in. I mean, it's insurance by insurance is going to, if you go from an AE to an X zone, do you think some people are going to have to actively go do something to maintain insurance, or you think most of the companies are going to keep them under some type of policy?
What we've spoken to, some of the larger companies, they're trying to do these automatic rewriting of policies, and so that lets a resident see that they've gotten money back, and then they would have a low cost at their renewal time. So I'll use myself as an example. I renew again in May. They rewrote my policy from May to May. So May of 2018, I need to renew. If my mortgage company does not pay it through escrow, I need to pay it myself, or else it will lapse. And so it's just kind of that piece of, I have it right now at a lower cost, but I want to make sure that people, as they renew, continue to kind of stay abreast upon their insurance policies and don't just think it's going to automatically happen.
Will you defer for just 1 second?
But to your question, I want to make sure everyone understands, no one will be dropped from the program. They will be kept in the program, and at renewal, they will see a lower premium. The mortgage company will notify them that they're no longer required to have that insurance, and 1,500 are already asking how to go about dropping it. And we're here to say, don't drop it. It is so important.
You know, it runs contrary. You would think that the mortgage company would want to protect the asset rather than almost encourage people not to have it.
They have a duty to notify them that it's not required because they made them buy it as a requirement of a federally backed mortgage.
Right, but in that sense, though, would it not be advantageous for them to continue to allow the property owner to escrow?
And that's what she said most of the lenders are doing, offering to do it, but saying...
At request.
At request.
Okay.
What we don't want to see is what happened in Baton Rouge. People got those letters saying that they're no longer required to have flood insurance, and a lot of people dropped their policy. All right, it went from maybe $2,000 or $3,000 a year to $475 a year. They had a windfall, and they were like, "Hey, we hadn't had a flood in 50 years or whatever," and then we had the flood in 2016. I received thousands of calls. People who said, "Well, they told me I didn't need to have it." Yeah, it's not required, but it's needed. And instead of taking that $1,500 or that $2,000 windfall, you take the $1,500 windfall and pay the flood insurance with the remainder. I don't know, it's very important. And the difference is between being able to put your life back together with your insurance policy or getting, on average, an $8,000 award from FEMA and having to do a SBA loan to cover the rest of your loss. And we are seeing a lot of it. We're still seeing people in Baton Rouge area and Central and all of the surrounding parishes that have that same problem. They dropped their flood insurance because it wasn't required, and now they're trying to put their lives together with loans and an $8,500 grant.
Mr. Henderson, I saw you speak last year on the West Bank, and you did a very good presentation. You believed the majority of people who flooded did not have flood insurance in Baton Rouge, correct?
Correct.
Yes, okay.
In fact, in the Baton Rouge area, 25% had flood insurance when the flood hit. Lafayette was the same. The good news is in Jeferson Parish, 55% of the properties are insured for flood. Comparable number in Orleans Parish. We have learned from the bitter experiences we've had. I was council chairman on the infamous May 3rd, 1978, and we had a council meeting on the West Bank that day. And had a difficult time getting to the council meeting because of the flooding that occurred. I was a legislator in 1995, Paul, you remember? And the thousands of homes that got water in them then. And what Ron is touching on is what's called the Air Force One effect. And that is the expectation, because of all the media attention that comes with a catastrophic event, that the federal government is going to come in and make everyone whole. And as Ron said, the typical grant is $8,000. And what they do give you is a low-interest SBA loan that, in effect, sucks all the equity out of the biggest asset the great majority of folks have in our parish, which is their home. 30 years to pay it back, you do get to do that, but your home is really mortgaged to the hilt if not beyond, after that.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
I have a
Councilman Templet?
I have a question for Ms. Gonzales. You know, naturally, it's been nice to have phone calls to your office thanking you for hopefully impacting lowering their insurance rates. I mean, I had one call where their flood insurance dropped $1,200, you know, in their notice. So very much compliment all the hard work you have done, Ms. Gonzales. But one of the things I wanted to find out is I had a couple people contact me that have had where their rate didn't change. Is there a process that they can go through to evaluate if their rate can change?
When you say their insurance rate, like their premium didn't change?
That premium didn't change, correct.
So that's a lot of the people who are starting to call our office now.
Okay.
Is what we're seeing is some of the zone determinations that come from FEMA because of the way our maps were made, where the flood zone runs through the street and it may not touch the property. Someone's actually in a zone X, the building's in a zone X, but the computer system doesn't know that. So we have to issue them a letter to help them get that done. The other big thing is that one of the biggest benefits of these maps is not just the move to zone X, but also the decrease in the base flood elevation. The only way a property owner sees savings is if they have an elevation certificate that shows their lowest floor of their house is above that base flood elevation. And unfortunately, they may have to purchase an elevation certificate or check with us to see if we have it on file. So sometimes it takes more work than just an automatic change in the system.
But sometimes that elevation certificate can have great value to them reducing their rates as well, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Especially, you know, if we look at base flood elevation has dropped by 2 feet, I equate that to your house has been elevated 2 feet. So it's kind of one of those insurance things. The higher you are above flood stage, the less risk you have of flooding and the lower cost premium you get.
So do we direct them to your office?
They can certainly talk to us. We can't get them in the survey, but we can look to see if our code enforcement department has it on file. But again, that's probably going to be only homes built from the 80s to now, and anything before that, which, you know, most of our housing stock was built before the 80s. So they would need to purchase a certificate if they don't have it and part of their files. Yes, sir.
If I may, and the issue you raise is a great one. I myself, we built our house out on the lakefront in 1975, and my father-in-law built it for us. And I know his tactic is to fill beyond the area, higher, and thankfully he did, because we were 1 inch above the flood waters after Katrina. But and if you have reason to believe you're higher than the area your property is located in, you should get one of those surveys shot to document that fact, submit it to your agent. You can get a surveyor through your agent if you are not sure who does that kind of thing, because it's a very common part of the appeal process. And if you can get a surveyor to document that you're above your neighborhood, above your fellow property owners, then you are entitled to a better rating and lower premiums.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Johnston?
I was just going to mention what you just said, Jim, is that I had a constituent come to me, he was complaining about his insurance. And I told him, I said, well, go get a survey and see if you're above the level. And he did, and he saved $1,200 a year. So I tell people that. I say if they question their insurance level of their elevation, I said, well, go get a survey done and see if it helps you. It may not, but it's worth the $250 investment.
Exactly. But they do have to front the $250, right, and they may not see
right. They may
see
not
a savings.
See it. Exactly.
Councilman Impastato?
Yes, Ms. Gonzales. I think it was covered in your part of the presentation, but just as a point of emphasis on two questions that we've gotten repeatedly over the last several months. Number one, how would a homeowner know whether their flood classification changed? That's the first question.
So the easiest way is to go online and look at the maps.
Through the Jeferson Parish website?
The Jeff Parish website. We've made it easy to get to it. We've done jeffparish.net/flood. And so if you click on that, at the bottom it says flood zones. It can take you to the map. You type in your address. We even have a few videos there if somebody can't get the system to work because it's a little finicky. But the big thing is there's a box on the side that shows you what the 95 zone was and what the new 2018 zone is, so that you can kind of see what the difference is. So that's the easiest way. If they're unable to navigate the website, certainly they can call our office, or we have ability to submit an online request.
And if I understood what you said earlier, they should be getting some notification from NFIP if it did change, right? Or no?
Well, they're like I'm saying, me personally, it came from my flood insurance company. They, through the system, they went through, and everyone that, when they did their map delineations, there's a process that's happening with each of these
So
companies.
they're not guaranteed to get some notice.
They may not, correct. And just as a quick point to that, there are some people who are getting notices that now they are now in a flood zone.
Okay.
So is that,
Well, I think that was going to get to my second question, which is we've gotten a few contacts saying, I was in an X, now I'm in an AE zone. And AE in particular seems to be something I've gotten a few calls about. What is an AE zone?
so AE is your higher risk flood zone where a mortgage company requires you to carry flood insurance. So that is, comes with that base flood elevation number. How high is the water going to get in that area? We have several thousand, probably in the 5,000 to 6,000 properties in Jeferson Parish that are seeing that change. And so by law now, if they have a mortgage, they need to maintain flood insurance. So for the next 12 months, FEMA has a process, and it's called a newly mapped procedure. So when you're newly mapped into that flood zone AE, they can, over a process, gradually increase your rate, but they would, basically you come in at that X zone rate. But I've talked to some property owners that says, you know, I've called my agent, I've talked to them, I've talked to my mortgage company, I don't know what to do. And I said, use the words newly mapped procedure, and there's a process for that. And so that's been helping some people. It's a process, but it's so you don't have to go in specifically with that new high rate.
Thank you.